Here we go, going live Sunday night. Hello to all of you jumping on the podcast early Monday morning, post bye week, week 9, recapping the action from a non-49ers football week. What happened in the NFC West? Niners lose a little ground on the Seahawks, gain a little ground on the rest of the division, and Justin Fields having a breakout right now. What does that say about the 49ers young quarterback Trey Lance? Did the 49ers make the wrong decision, or other lessons that could be learned about developing at quarterback in the NFL? All that and more. Get into the chat coming up on this live edition of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock here with you, not Eric Crocker. I'm rolling solo right now. Croc might join up. He's got a little dinner party going on, I think, in Arkansas right now. And so we're going to do this thing live. I'm going to hang out with you guys in the chat. If Croc is able to meet up with us, he will. I want to talk about everything going on in the NFC West this week. Justin Fields versus Trey Lance, because that is definitely a trending topic after we've seen kind of an out-of-nowhere breakout in year 2 for Justin Fields, while Trey Lance is, in a boot and hoping to come back next season. Mid-season report here on those teams in the NFC West, where the 49ers are right now after 9 weeks of the season, coming off a bye. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. That is what we do. Today's episode is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. Oh, look at this chat filling up. I know there's no 49ers game to break down here, but still seeing some ferocious 49ers fans out there, like the ferocious gentleman. It's showtime. It is showtime. I love this. I love how strong the 49ers fans. Come on. This is the best fan base in the NFL, right? And it's the best, the most well-covered team in the NFL. BSC says he doesn't care about Fields and Lance. Well, you should care about Fields and Lance. That is the future of this National Football League, and one of those guys is the future of the football team that you care so much about. BSC says it's a 2-team race in the NFC West. It's starting to look that way. Checking in on what the Seahawks did to the Arizona Cardinals. It wasn't a great game. I didn't come away impressed with either one of the teams from Seahawks at Cardinals in week 9, 31-21 the final there. The Seahawks improved to 6-3 on the season. The Cardinals fall to 3-6, and the Cardinals are just in shambles right now. Their defense isn't very good. They made a few plays in this one on defense, but seeing Kyler Murray run around, and it looked like it was going to be a boon when DeAndre Hopkins came back, and it kind of was, but it's like that's all they have, and he's running around like a video game, and it feels like he's got less and less of a plan every snap he takes. And you got to point to coaching, I think, is the biggest aspect of that. I don't think the team's roster has been managed extremely well over the course of the last few years there, and probably dating back to well before the Kyler Murray era there with the Arizona Cardinals. And to be honest with you, I don't know how Steve Keim has a job with the Arizona Cardinals. And my colleague, Alex Clancy, who's the host of Locked On Cardinals, actually feels the same way about that. We're in lockstep there. But Kyler Murray dropped back 35 times, only threw for 175 yards. Did have a couple touchdowns, no interceptions. He ran around like crazy, 8 carries for 60 yards in this game. And it wasn't awful by him, but just not getting a lot of help otherwise. The leading receiver for him, I mentioned DeAndre Hopkins, had the touchdown, got singled up on I don't know how this happened, but he was singled up in coverage on a rookie defensive end, which was the touchdown reception for DeAndre Hopkins. Rondale Moore, though, whoa, we got some volume happening with the highlights here. Don't want those playing on the podcast. Startled me there. Rondale Moore, 8 catches for 69 yards. You're not going to Rondale Moore your way into victory. I think we've learned that about the Arizona Cardinals too. He's a nice little gadget player, but it's not enough. And the play of Geno Smith continues. 26 of 34 there, 275 yards, another 100 yards more passing for Geno Smith, a 106.9 QB rating for Geno Smith, who continues to play really good football for those Seattle Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, the rookie running back, continues to play well. A couple of touchdown runs there, 190 yards on the ground, workhorse numbers, 26 carries for Kenneth Walker. Touchdown passes from both star receivers for the Seahawks. DK Metcalf, he's dealing with some injuries, but he still had some pretty good games. A couple of touchdown passes the last couple of weeks, even though he's banged up. And Tyler Lockett, 5 catches for 67 and a touchdown there. The rookies are just playing so insanely well for those Seahawks. It's really wild what that team is doing right now. It's really, it's kind of, I don't believe it's still with the Seahawks, because look, let me know in the chat what you think about this. What were you super impressed with what you saw from the Seattle Seahawks when the 49ers played them earlier this year? I wasn't. I didn't come away thinking, oh man, the Seahawks are actually really, really good, and they are doing a number on the rest of the league somehow. But I didn't come away that impressed with the Seahawks. They're playing a lot better against a lot of other teams in the NFL for whatever reason. But this is a very winnable division for the 49ers, but now game and a half. I don't want to say 2 games. Yeah, game 1 in the loss column, 2 in the win column behind the Seattle Seahawks now at the top of the NFC West. I think the 49ers can catch them. They get to play them again. They're going to be in their house, though, when they do it. And we'll see if the Seahawks play the 49ers tougher. But, the Seattle Seahawks right now are in the driver's seat. And I think what BSE said in the chat a little bit earlier, it's a 2-team race. It's starting to look that way. 3-6 now, 3 games under 500 for the Arizona Cardinals. And the Rams just have no answers. Like that Rams and Tampa Bay Buccaneers football game, 16-13. The Buccaneers every week can only muster less than 20 points. It's like 13 points, 19 points, 17 points, 16 points for the Buccaneers. But it was enough in this game to beat the Rams, who only put up 13 points and just completely botched the end of game defense, letting Tom Brady go down the field for a game-winning touchdown drive to win that one. The only touchdown of the game for Tom Brady, and that his worst losing streak of his career. 16-13, the final, Bucs over the Rams. The Rams fall to 3-5. So as of now, Seahawks in first place at 6-3. 49ers at 4-4, second place in the NFC West. The Los Angeles Rams at 3-5 are in third, and the Arizona Cardinals at 3-6 are in fourth. And really, you can almost stick a fork in the Rams and the Cardinals, because I don't see any way for these teams out of it. I believe a little bit more still in the Rams than the Cardinals, but they're playing so bad. Stafford is awful. He's not making the big plays with his arm that he did last year to go along with the interceptions, because he still had a ton of interceptions last year. They can't run the ball at all. His offensive line can't protect for him. Like, they have the worst offensive line maybe in the league right now with the Los Angeles Rams. So they're in a pretty dire situation. And the trade deadline's over. So who's coming to save the Los Angeles Rams? I don't think anybody is. They've got to get better in-house. And right now, it's hard to see how they're going to be able to do that. So feel really good right now. Feel really good about where the 49ers are. Al2DX says, if the Seahawks don't come crashing back to reality soon, they will in the playoffs. Yeah. Yeah. And look, the 49ers have been a pretty good playoff team once they get there, even if it's the path of a wild card team and not the path of an NFC West champion. So I don't think that's a problem. And I talked about this last week with Croc. Like, the 49ers at the time before these week 9 games, the 49ers would have been the 7 seed in the NFC, the 2 seeds, the Minnesota Vikings, who won again. They only have 1 loss. I kind of feel the same way about the Vikings that I do about the Seahawks. I think they're a little bit better team than the Seahawks, but you're not afraid of the Vikings. I wouldn't even be worried about going to Minnesota and playing the Vikings if I was the 49ers in week 1, if they were that last wild card team. So just get into the tournament is the goal right now for the 49ers. And I think there's still a pretty good shot that they'll be able to catch those Seattle Seahawks, because I do think the 49ers right now, as everything stands, is the best team in the division. And when they get everybody back after the bye and start getting a little bit more healthy, I don't think it's even a question. I think they're by far the best team in the division. We'll see if that plays out, and we'll see if that really does play out through the second half of the year, starting in week 10 for those 49ers. They need a CMC. Yeah, dude. That's the thing. Is like the Rams, I'm sure like good players will help. And having someone like Christian McCaffrey would help. If they signed Odell Beckham, that would help. That's, the closest thing to something they could add at the trade deadline. Maybe that could help them. But unless they find an offensive line, it's not going to matter because Matthew Stafford doesn't have time to facilitate any playmakers. So I don't think it matters. Elite Six Studios says Vikings could very easily be 7-5 after this 4-game stretch. They could be. And look, the 49ers, I know they're 4-4, but like they lost a monsoon game to Chicago, they should have won. Somehow didn't muster enough against Denver to outscore a team that only scored 11 points, 9 of their points on offense, 2 of them with a safety. The 49ers should have a lot better record. The 49ers should just be sitting at the bye in first place, period, at 6-2 right now, at the very least, and maybe 7-1, right? They did get boat raced by the Chiefs, but that's the only game this year where you thought the 49ers just couldn't hang with the team. And then we'll talk about this in a second here next. How about Sunday Night Football? How do you feel seeing a team like the Titans do a number on the Chiefs? Now, the Chiefs were able to come back and win that game, but a team like the Titans being able to hold the Chiefs, did they show a blueprint? Did the New York Jets, Robert Saleh, did he show a blueprint to teams that are playing against the Buffalo Bills potentially in the playoffs? And even the teams that are the best teams in the NFL, they have faults too. There's a lot of parity in the league. Anybody can beat just about anybody any week. So when I say 49ers are the best team in the league, you know what? Or the best team in the NFC West, you know what? They might be, but that doesn't mean they're going to go win it either. Because you still got to play the games and you still got to play well and you still have to execute. And the 49ers have had some problems doing that throughout this year. Next, we'll talk a little Titans Chiefs. We'll talk Justin Fields and Trey Lance. That is a big topic from today, and we will continue to get into the chat. What are your thoughts about the 49ers at the bye week? What are your thoughts about anything else going on in the NFL? This is one of those rare opportunities we have to not really have a super 49ers focused conversation, if that's where it goes in the chat. But it's up to you guys in the chat. For the way this episode is going to finish on today's Locked On 49ers. Today's episode is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. For example, if you want to play a little daily fantasy in PrizePicks, which is super easy, by the way, all you do is you pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against a whole bunch of other people or some big pool of sharks either. It's just mano a mano, you against the projections at PrizePicks. And for example, let's say you want to play a little Monday Night Football daily fantasy. Lamar Jackson, more or less than 210.5 passing yards. How about Andy Dalton for the New Orleans Saints? 230.5 passing yards. I feel like this could be a defensive battle. I might want to go under on the Dalton for sure. Lamar doesn't have a lot of weapons at his disposal. You might want to look at the over on the rushing and the under on the passing yards for Lamar Jackson on Monday Night Football. If you disagree, if you agree, go play daily fantasy. And that's just 2. You could pick up to 5 players on Monday Night Football and win up to 10 times your money on that entry. It's not just NFL either. NBA, Major League Baseball. Well, no more Major League Baseball. The season's over. NHL, PGA. We're talking college sports. We're talking disc golf. We're talking cricket, MMA, boxing, you name it. You can find projections at PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's get into the chat a little bit. I want to talk about that game on Sunday Night Football. How can the 49ers get bombed on for 44 points? And then you see games like this with the Chiefs, and they can only muster 17 points in regulation against the Tennessee Titans. Are the Tennessee Titans that much better on defense? Do they have just a better game plan? Did they just execute flat out better? I know the 49ers were really banged up in that game, but it's tough And that's where I get a little bit worried about the 49ers, because you see some teams play the Chiefs tough. The Chiefs, it's not like the Chiefs are undefeated, right? But they went in and played the 49ers like they were a team that could not be beaten. And the 49ers have had such a bad job, I think, overall of executing this year. And we saw it last year. They started 3-5, and then all of a sudden started winning games, started playing a lot better. Is this just going to be another slow start for the 49ers like we've seen? Is this just a Kyle Shanahan thing now? And all of a sudden they figure it out midseason, boom, you're off and running. You're a playoff team. You can go further and win games in the playoffs on the road if you have to. Is that just what the 49ers are? But seeing the 49ers lack of execution in a number of games in the first 8 of the season gets me a little bit worried. Are they going to get there? Because you hope it's a switch that they can turn on midseason, but that's not the way you want to play things in the NFL. You want to be able to get a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a cushion like the Seahawks have, just in case they do start to falter. They've already got that little bit of a lead, and the 49ers should already be right there. The fact that they're 4-4 means they can't have a ton of mistakes going the rest of the year. Michael says the Titans defense is absurdly good. If they had A.J. Brown, or at least attempted to give Willis some sort of check down, they might have won. Those were very weird play calls at the end of the game. There was some weird play calls at the end of the game. I think Willis is in over his head as well. So that's tough, because I don't know what you really can do for the guy. I think you have to start to take some pages out of the Chicago Bears playbook with what Justin Fields has started to do. But I don't know if Willis is even that athletically. He's a good athlete, and he's got a great arm, but I don't think he's even to that level of where Justin Fields was coming in the league. So that's even further behind than that. And we already saw how far some of these 2021 quarterbacks were, and this is a rookie right now. You just need a veteran quarterback in there at this point if you're really trying to win games, and it's all about development if you're going to play that. But the A.J. Brown trade makes zero sense. I have no idea what the Titans thought they were doing with the A.J. Brown trade. They just didn't want to pay a guy. They just literally thought, we're not going to pay a wide receiver. That's how we feel about wide receivers. We're not going to do it. Mike Vrabel didn't even like it. You saw the reaction from Mike Vrabel. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch the video of Mike Vrabel when the trade gets consummated with the Eagles on draft night. He didn't like it. He had to take a walk. He had to take some deep breaths. If you're trying to win, that was just a bad move. And A.J. Brown's young. He's a current player. He's a future player. And the Titans flat out got worse. I don't know what they were thinking with that move. How come Vrabel always looks like he's having to poo? It's a very good question. I think that's a Belichick thing too. It's like it's everything's bad until the game's over and you won, and then you're still kind of angry during the post-game presser. I think that's just the way it is. Andrew says Pete Carroll's an elite coach. Kyle has a lot to learn. I mean, he is. This season goes to the top of the resume for Pete Carroll, aside from Super Bowl seasons, for the coaching job that he's done. A backup quarterback in Geno Smith, looking better than Russell Wilson. Starting 5-6 rookies on the offense and defense, including high impact position. We're talking offensive tackles, corners, Boye Mafe at edge. He's sort of rotational, but I think he started some games as well. A running back. Running backs can come in and play early all the time, but it's pretty phenomenal the job that Pete Carroll is doing right now. I think it's pretty darn clear. The evidence is clear that Pete Carroll can coach a little bit. That is for sure. Willis won't throw the ball. That's the issue. I mean, you can't. That's the biggest thing for college passers to the NFL. And the reason Willis fell in the draft too, remember people were talking about being a first round pick. He fell to the third round for that reason. It's like, look, this is even for college systems, a really simple system he's coming through, easy reads. You can't wait for a player to be open in the NFL. Those windows are so tight. You have to know it cold. You have to be able to throw before a guy breaks open. It's just so hard. And it's just, you couldn't expect Willis to be more than what we've seen from him so far. It was just as soon as you lose A.J. Brown and then you lose Ryan Tannehill and you don't have a veteran quarterback to go to, I know they've done pretty well this year, but you're not going to win a lot of games. I mean, congrats to Vrabel for even keeping that one close. He got to overtime with the Chiefs with a rookie quarterback. Like, they almost had no business even being in that game. So that was pretty impressive on its own. Why is UTSA turning out more promising young pros like Burford and Woolen, the two rookies, than the University of Texas? It's a good question, man. That is a great question. You're gonna have to ask, and there are some UT boosters out there that are saying the same damn thing, and they are not happy with what's going on at the University of Texas. Although they got the Manning, right? They got Arch Manning coming to Texas, don't they? So maybe that'll turn things around. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. All right. Next, I want to talk a little bit about Justin Fields, what we've seen from his development really in the last month or so. Seeing a true breakout for the young quarterback, playing as good a ball as we've seen from any of that 2021 class over the last few weeks. Why is it happening? What can we learn from it? Of course, we have to ask the question, oh no, seeing that breakout, did the 49ers pick the wrong quarterback at number 3 in 2021? And how just this breakout and seeing this development, what lessons can we learn about Trey Lance because of what's happening with Justin Fields and what's happening with some of the other quarterbacks from 2021? Let's get into that conversation next. BetOnline is your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season as well. If you like betting on basketball, you got to wait a week to bet on football. In between those Sundays, you can go get involved with a ton of NBA basketball games and have a lot of fun and win a lot of money at BetOnline. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. We're talking team matchups, player developments, in-depth analysis on every single game, because if you're going to wager your hard-earned money, you want to make sure you are informed before you make those wagers. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including NBA, MMA, boxing, golf, of course, football, pro and college, you name it. You can even play Vegas casino games between sports and your sports bets at BetOnline. So get over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I want to hear you guys in the chat. Be honest. Anybody out there just the slightest bit worried? And I know if I put a poll out there asking, hey, would you rather have seen Justin Fields the last couple of weeks? Would you rather have Justin Fields now than Trey Lance? And all the 49ers fans, they've already bought number 5 jerseys. They're all going to say, well, I'd still want Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going to be the best. He's going to be great. And so I don't even want to really phrase it and put it like that. Like asking the question, did the 49ers draft the wrong guy? I'm on record. I like Justin Fields the most. And it was because of what we're seeing now with the upside. And Justin Fields still has, I think of it like a donut. If you think of playing quarterback in the NFL like a donut, right? And Justin Fields has like this big round donut with a hole in the middle, right? He's got all this running ability, and then he can make these crazy downfield accurate dime throws. And those two abilities right there are the things that the Bears loved him. That's why they went up to get him. That's what I loved him. It's what a lot of analysts that like Justin Fields coming out of the draft and coming out of Ohio State liked about him, was because of his competitiveness in big games, his crazy arm talent, and his athleticism. Like, that is so much to work with. That's a crazy amount of raw tools to work with. But his game is like a donut. You have all this, and there's a big hole in the middle of the field. How he has the stuff that's hard to do. Like, you can't teach that, right? You can't make Jimmy G run or throw like Justin Fields can. But Jimmy G is like the donut hole. He's like, he completes the donut. Jimmy G is so good over the middle of the field, short and intermediate. And for some reason, Trey Lance is having a really, really hard time. We talked about Willis. I mean, Willis isn't even to Fields level yet. And Fields is already for a lot of his 1.5 years in the NFL so far has been completely non-functional because he can't take the easy stuff, right? The get the ball out on your back foot, make the quick reads, take the easy stuff, the free candy that is there for you, short and intermediate. He's not good in those aspects. And it's wild. Like, can he just not, will he never get there? But what's crazy is even if he doesn't, with the way that Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator for the Bears, has started to use Trey Lance, now we're starting to see almost Lamar Jackson-like stuff from him. And now that buys him time. And now you see with some of the running usage for Justin Fields, now you're seeing him start to be more efficient as a passer in between, because defenses have to play that honestly now with the run. And it's not just drop back. Oh, shoot, I got to take off out the back door here and run around. And he's still doing some of that stuff. But he's a dynamic athlete. He's probably, after Lamar Jackson, second fastest quarterback in the NFL, certainly the fastest quarterback over 220 pounds in the NFL, right? It's Lamar for sure. And then the only other guy is maybe Kyler Murray, who's very different athletically. He's 5'8", it's like a little video game running around out there. Looks like Mario. But Justin Fields, with some of the plays he can make with his legs and his arm, is crazy. If he can figure out the donut hole, right? If he can figure out the middle, if you could put him and Jimmy G together, you'd really have something. If he can start taking the easy stuff, that process can get quicker and get quicker. He starts getting the ball out faster. By the way, get some weapons. I like seeing them get Claypool. Might have been an overpay in that trade, because there's probably, just why didn't they just draft the guy that the Steelers drafted in the second round, who was on the board when the Bears picked twice in the second round? Go take George Pickens, so you don't have to trade what's probably going to be a very high second round pick on Chase Claypool, who's only under contract for one more year. But aside from some of those decisions for the Bears, there's almost nobody on their entire offense that would even start for the 49ers. So it's pretty remarkable to see the turnaround that Justin Fields has made over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And yeah, there's debates whether Claypool's that good, period, right? Claypool wouldn't start for the 49ers. Darnell Mooney's their best receiver. He wouldn't start for the 49ers, right? I don't know that any of their offensive linemen would start for the 49ers. They've got a rough group there that's actually starting to play better than they look on paper, and the 49ers aren't even that strong on the offensive line in some spots. So, it's the lesson here isn't so much should the 49ers have taken Justin Fields over Trey Lance? We've debated that. The hay's in the barn. The picks have been spent. The lesson to be learned here is it takes some time. And there were people, there are people in my mentions, like probably 2-3 weeks ago, like right pre-breakout from Trey Lance, that were like, talking trash and be like, hey, you thought the Niners should take Justin Fields. And it's like, man, when you think you know what's going to happen in the NFL is chaos. It's got a way of it's got a way of really flipping on you pretty darn quick. So it's also a lesson for the 49ers and 49ers fans to be patient. And we don't know what Trey Lance is going to be, but he's got a ton of talent himself, and it might take some time. But even when you don't expect it's going to happen, it could still happen. So let's all remember that when it comes to developing quarterbacks. And quarterback development is never linear. And we're just seeing a ton of growth over the next few weeks. And who knows, next week, maybe Justin Fields falls completely on his face and just looks terrible and looks lost again, right? So, I don't know. I don't know who I would – during draft season in 2021, I liked Justin Fields more because of the things we're seeing that he can do. Will he ever figure out the rest? I don't know. Is what he can do now enough with the way they're using him? Starting to look a lot Lamar Jackson-like, right? And so maybe it is enough. So it's fascinating. It's really interesting. And if you told me you were only going to get from Trey Lance what we've seen the last few weeks from Justin Fields at his best, if that's what Trey Lance is going to become, I'd almost say, I think you kind of take it, right? Because we still have no idea what Trey Lance is going to look like. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch Trey Lance, and it's going to be fun to watch Justin Fields. And man, Zach Wilson's looked terrible. Mac Jones looked the best at the beginning. People were trying to say he's going to be awesome because he was the most pro ready, and he hasn't gotten better since his third week in the NFL. I think it was his best game. So I don't know. Trevor Lawrence got to win somehow over those Las Vegas Raiders. I'm sure there's no 49ers fans in the chat that were upset seeing the Raiders drop another 17-point lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But that wasn't so much because Trevor Lawrence was putting the team on his back either. He hasn't looked great. So it's amazing. 2021 was like, oh man, generational quarterback class. And we're having a tough time finding any of them that are any good. And the best one so far has been the last 3 weeks from Justin Fields. And he still has a lot that he's got to continue to get better at and develop. Andrew says Lance isn't close to the athlete that Fields is. No, that's for sure. Like he can't run like that. He can't. He's a little bit bigger. But Fields is the way Fields runs at his size, he's 225 pounds, 6'3". Like he's way bigger than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's skinny compared to Justin Fields, and he's 6 inches taller than Kyler Murray. He's a dude. Like he's got crazy raw tools. RS says the biggest difference between Lance and Fields is that Fields was actually given a chance to develop. He's played a ton. And that's what I'm saying. Like he played more in college than Lance did. He's played more in the NFL now than Lance has. And if it takes that much time, we saw what it was like for Alex Smith. Alex Smith was a 1-year wonder at Utah, was 20 years old, super young, redshirt sophomore coming into the NFL, the youngest guy in the league, just like Trey Lance was when he was drafted. And it took him 8 damn years to get good, right? Like he was drafted in 2005. His first Pro Bowl was 2013 after he wasn't even on the 49ers anymore. And to be honest with you, it's pretty amazing that he was able to stick around and be good with the 49ers and make it to the Harbaugh era where he started to see some success. Most quarterbacks would have crashed and burned and been gone by that point, but he actually made it that far from 2005 all the way to 2012 with the 49ers. That's a remarkable feat on its own. Now, I think a lot of 49ers fans would be pretty darn disappointed if it took Trey Lance that long to develop. But it might take a really long time. Like Trey Lance needs to play all of next year and then all of another year to even start to get to the point where we're seeing where Fields' experience is now, and he's just barely starting to figure things out. And it's even taken his team time to figure out how to use him. So it's going to take time with Kyle, right, to figure out how to use Trey Lance and see all that come together. So there's a ton of moving parts. Luckily, Trey Lance has a lot better surrounding cast than Justin Fields does. And he's definitely seems like he's a cool customer, wired correctly. And you really hope he's, physically able to come back from this injury and it doesn't weigh on him. It doesn't make things even more difficult for him to start next year because he's not going to have a full off season to prepare either. So it could be tough sledding and it might take some time. So if Trey Lance is going to become a dude, might not be in 2023, might not be until 2024. Do the 49ers have that much time to wait for Trey Lance? Fascinating stuff. Kurt says, I still wonder why Kyle didn't even consider Fields. I like Trey, but it's going to take a while for him to catch up, I think. Yeah, I have the same question. Like, I know some people like Mac Jones more than I did, and maybe I was too low on Mac Jones, but I thought Mac Jones was Andy Dalton, who we're going to see on Monday Night Football. Like I thought, Andy Dalton was a high draft pick. He was like the first pick in the second round or the second pick in the second round, right before Colin Kaepernick, right? In 2011, he was a pretty high pick, but I thought that's kind of what Mac Jones was to me. His team was so talented in college and he was a good facilitator and a pretty good player, but I just didn't see the upside in Mac Jones. And I thought he was probably a late one, early second round type of guy. He ended up going right in the middle of round one at 15 overall. But the thing I question is, the brain trust that runs the 49ers thought that it was a viable option to trade all of that up to draft Mac Jones at 3. That's where you start to get worried. It's not like they were like, oh, well, if Mac Jones is there at 12, maybe we'll take him. It was like, man, we got to get up because maybe we got to draft Mac Jones at 3. You get a little worried about that process. And there has to be something with Fields personality-wise. Maybe they saw the donut I'm talking about. Like Kyle Shanahan wants the donut hole, right? He wants the middle of that donut. He doesn't care about the rest as much. And so I think that's probably maybe something that Kyle Shanahan saw. We know so far that Kyle Shanahan has drafted 2 quarterbacks. Both of those quarterbacks, CJ Beathard and Trey Lance, came from pro-style offenses in college. And when I sit back and think of all the teams in college football that run a true, like we have a fullback on the field, we run a pro style offense. It might only be Iowa and North Dakota State. Like I can't even think of any more. Like nobody runs it. So if you're only drafting players from that team, your pool gets really, really small when you're looking at quarterbacks. And I do think there's something to that where Kyle Shanahan really likes to see something that looks closer to his NFL brand of football when he's evaluating these quarterbacks. And even Alabama, if you like Mac Jones, Alabama has maybe a little bit more of a pro style offense than a lot of other teams. The question of developing quarterbacks. Can Shanahan develop a quarterback? I don't know. It remains to be seen. Garoppolo hasn't really gotten a lot better under Shanahan. Playing a little bit more free this year like he did in 2017. Is that a kind of a diss on Kyle Shanahan and his ability to handle quarterbacks? He's really good at dialing things up for quarterbacks, but actually the developing of the player, I think it's an unknown right now. It's at best an incomplete, and we've got to see what happens with Trey Lance. But that is a big worry because Trey Lance needed as much development just because of his lack of playing time as any quarterback maybe in the history of football. So that's a tough task, and that's why I've been preaching patience on this podcast. Let's go here to Emiliano. He says, for a guy that gets hated on, Lance still had a better rating than both Kyler and Fields in those two losses he had as a starter. And we all know what he did versus Texans. Fans tend to be myopic sometimes. Yeah, no, there's signs there that Trey Lance is going to be good for sure. Like none of this is to say, and I know some fans want to just like, and there's fans that were like, Justin Fields, bad forever, going to be terrible, game over, right? And we know that's not the case. And it's also not the case if now people are saying, oh, Justin Fields was the best quarterback now and forever of that draft class. Anybody who passed on him messed up for sure. And he's going to be amazing. Like you just can't make those kind of statements. And if you think you can make any kind of statement about what Trey Lance is going to be, you're just going to be wrong because we have no idea. He's shown signs and he's shown some other things like, oh, that needs work, right? He needs to work on a lot of the similar things that we've seen a lot of these quarterbacks work on. He needs to get the ball out quicker. He needs to make decisions faster. I would argue that, he's obviously not as fast and athletic as guys like Kyler and Fields are. He has way more talent on his team than Fields did. So that clearly factors in. I would have to imagine Justin Fields would look better on the 49ers over the last 2 years than he has on the Bears. I mean, you would have to argue that, right? So, I don't know. The big question is it's such an unknown with Trey Lance, and we have no idea. And if someone's trying to make any absolute statements on it, then they're just flat out wrong. It's probably not the person you should be listening to about football because we just still have no idea about all these guys. But it was really cool to see, I think. And I came out rooting for Justin Fields more this year because of all the hate he gets. I came out rooting way more for Trey Lance because of all the hate he gets from half of the fan base. And I come out rooting more for Jimmy Garoppolo because of the hate he gets from the opposite half of the 49ers fan base, right? I came out rooting for all these guys because it's tough playing quarterback in the NFL. And what some people expect from some of these players is kind of insane sometimes. Like Justin Fields has a better QBR, not just in the last 3 or 4 weeks, for the whole season than Aaron Rodgers does. I saw the question, which made me think of this. Cool Kid says, you wouldn't want Brady or Rodgers? Neither one of them playing great right now. I definitely wouldn't say no to Brady or Rodgers. Brady's getting so old now. After this season, do you bring in, if one of them is available, just to hedge your bets, kind of like the 49ers did with Jimmy Garoppolo this year? Do you bring one of those guys in and say, hey, Trey Lance, we're not going to put it all on you. Now you're going to back up and learn from an all-time great, a Hall of Fame quarterback? There could be an argument made to go that route, and you might have the opportunity to get one of those quarterbacks for sure. It's going to be a fun offseason because there's going to be not a lot of draft picks in the top 100 to talk about for the 49ers unless they trade up, and we won't know that until draft night. So there's going to be a lot of quarterback speculation. Jimmy G, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, you name it. It's going to be interesting. And if Fields continues to ball out, There's going to be a lot of people that more and more, in fact, that will start to look at it and say, maybe the 49ers did screw up there. But the bottom line is we have no idea if the 49ers screwed up because we still have just such an incomplete picture on what Trey Lance is. The good news, the 49ers, as currently constructed, are going to be as good as they've been all year, most likely starting in week 10, getting a lot of guys back. And they've got some firepower on offense. If you get Debo and CMC together, it'll be fun to watch Debo and McCaffrey operate. Let's see what Kyle Shanahan does there. Jimmy G's playing some of his best football he's played with the 49ers over the course of the last few weeks as well. So it should be a lot of fun. I can't wait for the second half of the season. Thank you so much, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. Thanks to all of you who jumped into the late night chat here after overtime and Sunday night football. Croc and I will be back tomorrow. We're going to get into some salary cap stuff and what some past and future contracts look like for the San Francisco 49ers right now and going forward, as well as we get ready for week 10 post-bye week. No more buys for the 49ers. Time to make that playoff run, and we'll be here with you for all of it. Talk to you then right here, Locked On 49ers.